Namaste. I have the pleasure to read another chapter of Swami Anand Arun's book, Lone Seeker, Many Masters. This time it is the fifth chapter, and it is about Paramhansa Yogananda. Yeah, you can sit down or lie down comfortably and just listen to my voice as you listen to the rain or to a waterfall or to running water. And then anything will happen, what will happen, and maybe the presence of Paramhansa Yogananda will touch you through my being. Paramhansa Yogananda. The night was silent and cool, and the Master's presence was very palpable. Suddenly I was seized by this intense desire to look at the person who was wearing the robe. I looked up, and what I saw left me dumbfounded. Paramhansa himself was looking at me and smiling. He stood that way for the next few seconds and disappeared into thin air just like that. Beautiful picture of Paramhansa Yogananda. Steve Jobs, one of the greatest innovators of the century, in his last days planned each detail of his own memorial service to be held at Stanford University in October 2011. Each attendee received a brown box as a farewell gift. This last souvenir, which Jobs believed could do justice to his extraordinary life, was the book that had inspired and shaped his spiritual journey. Autobiography of a Yogi. The book has remained a close companion throughout my spiritual journey. I have read this book countless times. It has silenced my doubts when the path seemed precarious, reassured me when the inexplicable unfolded, and meditation took me to the eclectic lands of mystery. The journey of spirituality is too mysterious and enigmatic for words. The relationship between a master and disciple is the greatest love affair possible. We can forgive the limitations of language for not being able to truly reflect its essence. And yet, whatever could be captured in words, Autobiography of a Yogi has expressed it all. We can never thank Swami Yogananda enough for giving his exceptional gift to the world. Paramhansa Yogananda was born on 5th January 1893 at Gorakhpur, a city near the border of Nepal. His father, Bhagavaticharan Ghosh, was a high-ranking officer in the Indian Railway. Yogananda's childhood name was Mukunda Lal Ghosh. In 1915, he took formal vows into the monastic Swami order from Sri Yukteswar Giri and became Swami Yogananda Giri. Sri Yukteswar Giri later decorated him with the title Paramhansa. Paramhansa means Supreme Swan and is a title indicating the highest spiritual attainment. Swamiji's parents were the disciples of Lahari Mahashya, who was the direct disciple of Mahavatar Babaji, the primary guru of the great tradition of Kriya Yoga. Mahavatar Babaji is believed to have been living in the Indian Himalayas near Badrinath in his physical body for thousands of years. It is said that Shankaracharya and Kabir were initiated by Mahavatar Babaji. Babaji is said to have defied the laws of time and is blessed with eternal youth. There is no trace of aging in his body. Babaji comes to Prayag in each Kumbh Mela, the largest gathering of Indian holy men that happens every 12 years. He still guides seekers who are very advanced in their path. In the Kumbh Mela of January 1884, Mahavatar Babaji gave darshan to Sri Yukteswar Giri and told him, "The future of the world is only possible if there is equal exchange between the East and the West. There has been great materialistic growth in the West, but no spiritual progress to match its proportion. I heard a cry of many Western souls who are seeking spiritual solace. Very soon I will send you a disciple whom you will have to train in the secrets of Kriya Yoga and send him to the West." Later that inspired young man became Paramhansa Yogananda. It must be the same spiritual call that inspired Swami Vivekananda, Shivapuri Baba, Prabhupada, Maharshi Mahesh Yogi in Osho to go to the West. And it is the same call for which my Guru wants me to travel around the West and conduct spiritual activities. Yogananda was marked with unusual awareness and longing for spiritual experiences. Once Yogananda's mother took her son to her Guru, Lahari Mahashaya, to be blessed by him. Lahari Mahashaya took the child in his lap, stroked his forehead affectionately and said, "This child will become a great yogi. He will act like a spiritual engine and pull a lot of souls to the kingdom of God." Yogananda had a keen attraction towards saints and sannyasins since he was a young boy. The members of his family were surprised to see such spiritual ardor and divine faith in such a young child. He had a deep desire to go and meditate in the Himalayas. Once he even ran away from home to fulfill this purpose. He had reached Banaras and scouted around many ashrams there. In one such trip, while he was walking the streets of Kashi, he saw an ochre-robed sannyasin with divine radiance. The sannyasin was looking at him, smiling. Yogananda realized that he was the same person he had seen in his visions many times. "Oh, my love, finally you have come to me. I have been waiting for you for years," said the sannyasin in a blissful voice. Yogananda also realized that this was none other than his enlightened Guru, who would later guide him towards enlightenment too. As was the existential plan, after this meeting with his Guru, Yukteswar Giri, Yogananda's life took a complete turn. Yogananda moved to Sirampur, a city close to Kolkata, where Yukteswar Giri had a small ashram. Yogananda spent most of his time in his Guru's hermitage while pursuing his higher studies. Swamiji practiced his yoga and meditation with utmost devotion and patience for the next 10 years. Also, he had no interest in completing his studies. Swamiji's Guru insisted he complete them. "You have to pass your BA examinations. A yogi with a degree will be more effective in the West," he used to tell him. Swamiji has beautifully described his years he spent in close proximity to his beloved Guru in Autobiography of a Yogi. He spent most of his time at the ashram and practiced meditation. One night when Swamiji was staying with Yukteswar Giri and enjoying the beauty of the night, suddenly his master inquired about his BA final exams. Yogananda was as so awakened from a spell and realized the exams were just around the corner. He replied nervously, "The exams died in 5 days, but I haven't prepared for them at all. It is sure that I will fail, so I had better not appear in the exams." Yukteswar Giri wouldn't listen to his disciple's plan and ordered him, "You have to appear in the exams. If you don't, then your family will also be sad, and it will also be a barrier in the divine plan. You appear in the exams, and God will surely help you." As ordered by his Guru, Yogananda went to his friend Ramesh and studied all night. Miraculously, whatever he studied in the night was to be asked in the exams. But in the English exams, Yogananda calculated that he would get no more than 33 marks, when the pass mark was 36. He went straight to his Guru's ashram and told him that he would surely fail in English. "Don't worry, the sun and moon might change their course, but you will certainly pass your BI exams," Sri Yukteswar said to Yogananda. When the results came out, Yogananda found out that in that particular year, the Bengal University had reduced the pass marks of English from 36 to 33. Elated and perplexed, he went straight to his guru and prostrated at his feet. Sri Yukteswar smiled and lovingly said to him, "God probably found it easier to pass you than to change the course of the sun and the moon." Soon after Yogananda graduated from college in 1920, he received the invitation to participate in the International Conference of the Religious Liberals in Boston. Before he left for America, Mahavatar Babaji gave him a darshan and said, "Always remain fearless. You shall always be divinely protected." Yukteswar Giri also lifted his spirits by saying, "All doors are open to you now. Go to America. Spiritual energy will enter through the eyes of any person you gaze at, and their spiritual journey will be kick-started. Even if you are in the middle of a dense forest, you will find a friend." His guru's blessing came true. Wherever Yogananda went in America, he found a friend, and through their help he established the headquarters of the Yogoda Satsang Society in Los Angeles in 1925. In 1946, Yogananda published his book Autobiography of a Yogi. The book is an enduring international bestseller. Over 1,000 copies of the book are sold every day worldwide. It has been translated into all major languages of the world. Yogananda took the United States of America by storm and had achieved much fame in a very short period. But when he returned from the United States in 1935 for a short period to meet his master for the last time, he was still longing to be praised verbally by him. One day when they were alone together, he said, "Guru, when I came to you, I was only a kid. Today my hair is already graying. Do you remember? You have expressed your love for me verbally only in your first meeting. I know that your love for me is immense, but why are my ears so desperate to hear those words from you?" Yukteswar Giri smiled at Yogananda and said, "Be it as you wish. When I was householder before I took sannyas, I had desired a son whom I wanted to grow up to become a great yogi. But my wife died before I had a son, and the desire lay buried deep in my unconscious. When you came into my life, you fulfilled that desire too, and liberated me from all desires." Tears rolled down Sri Yukteswar Giri's cheek. He embraced Swamiji and said, "Yogananda, I have loved you and will love you always." A master always liberates his disciples, but sometimes disciples like Yogananda can become a medium to release even their master from the bondage of desires. After making arduous efforts to preach the spiritual significance of yoga in the West for 32 years, Yogananda left his body in California on March 7, 1952. On that day, he was attending a dinner party for Binay Ranjan Sen, the visiting Indian ambassador to the United States, at the Biltmore Hotel in Los Angeles. At the end of the feast, Swamiji spoke about the possibility of a united world through the cohesion of the East and the West. According to Dayamata, a direct disciple of Yogananda, who was head of the Self-Realization Fellowship from 1955 until 2010. Swamiji concluded his speech with his poem, My India. Where Ganges, woods, Himalayan caves, and mean dream God, I am hallowed, my body touched that thought. As soon as he finished the last verse of his poem, he raised his eyes to his third eye, and his body flopped on the floor. His body is preserved in Forest Lawn Memorial Park Cemetery in Glendale, California. Yogananda's death was also miraculous. His body was kept on display for 20 days before they interred it. During that time, it did not emit any foul odor nor show any visible sign of decay. The director of the Memorial Park, Harry T. Rowe, has described this event in a letter. The absence of any visual signs of decay in the dead body of Paramhansa Yogananda offers the most extraordinary case in our experience. No physical disintegration was visible in his body even 20 days after death. No indication of mold was visible on his skin, and no visible drying up took place in the bodily tissues. This state of perfect preservation of a body is, so far as we know from mortuary annals, an unparalleled one. No odor of decay emanated from his body at any time. The unexpected meeting. Between 2005 and 2010, I conducted several meditation retreats on a ferry in West Bengal through the Sundarban Delta and Ganga Sagar. I always visit the Belur Math and Dakshineshwar temples whenever I am in Kolkata. During my stay in the city, I also visit Yogananda Ashram in Dakshineshwar and Swami Yogananda's house at 4 Garpa Road, where he was born. I have met some of Swamiji's family members, including his brother, Sananda Lal Ghosh's son, Hare Krishna Ghosh. I also met a granddaughter of his younger brother, Ananta, at Serampore. At the 4 Garpa Road house, we were greeted by Mr. Hare Krishna Ghosh, the son of Sananda and nephew of Swamiji. Mr. Ghosh was taking care of the house in those days. He was a rather amicable person. We talked at length about Swamiji. I told him I was an admirer of Swamiji and had written several articles on him and spoken about him on national radio and television. He was kind enough to allow us to meditate in the small attic room where Swamiji attained enlightenment. It was empty except for a small altar with Swamiji's picture and a shelf with a few photos and relics. Swamiji has written in detail about his stay in that house in Autobiography of a Yogi. The room was still vibrating with his strong presence. Sitting in that tiny room for half an hour, I was absorbed into deep meditation. After meditation, Mr. Ghosh showed us around the place. Swamiji had presented a lot of things to him: a tea set, Swamiji's cloth, and many of his rare pictures. Mr. Ghosh was showing me a photo album, and both of us were totally absorbed in the photos. He told me that Swamiji and Indian poet Rabindranath Tagore came from the same ancestral root. When we were busy peering at the family tree, from the corner of my eyes, I noticed a bright orange robe fluttering behind Mr. Ghosh. I thought perhaps it was someone from the house. Mr. Ghosh was talking in a deep, sonorous Bengali accent. The night was silent and cool, and the master presence was very palpable. I was blissed out. We spent a long time leafing through the pictures, and the robe kept fluttering in the background. Suddenly I was seized by this intense desire to look at the person who was wearing the robe. I looked up, and what I saw left me dumbfounded. Swami Yogananda himself was looking at me and smiling. He stood at bay for the next few seconds and disappeared into thin air just like that. The vision of his samadhi. In the Eastern religions, there is a tradition of preserving the dead body of an enlightened being safely without cremating it. There are reasons for this. In the Hindu religion, the body of a normal person is cremated. After the body is cremated, the bioplasma of the body slowly diffuses into the sky. The body of a person is cremated so as to disrupt their attachment to their physical body after their death and free their consciousness. The body of an enlightened master, however, is preserved as it is, because it radiates very strong spiritual vibrations and creates a Buddha field around it. Prayers and meditation are natural in such places, and the visitor receives spiritual blessings. The samadhi or burial spots of such enlightened masters are sacred spaces on this earth that can immensely help the transformation of seekers who come there. In 2007, I visited a Self-Realization Fellowship, SRF, Hermitage at Encinitas, California. A very close and dedicated disciple of Swamiji, Rajarshi Chanakanda, purchased this beautiful property for his beloved master. He was so much concerned about Swamiji's comfort that when Swamiji left for India in 1935, Rajarshi purchased a car and had it shipped on the same ship Swamiji was traveling in. Rajarshi had often heard Swamiji profess his love for the ocean. When Swamiji returned from India, Rajarshi decided to buy a beautiful cottage by the ocean for his master as a surprise gift. Swamiji instantly loved the place and spent a considerable part of his life there. Swamiji wrote Autobiography of a Yogi at the Hermitage. The property overlooks the vast Pacific Ocean that silences the cacophony of the world behind and fills the place with blissful quietude. I walk through the neatly maintained garden dotted with fish ponds, vines, cactuses and gnarled trees. The place is a work of art. Each vine, each tree, each flower was still fragrant with the memory of Swamiji, who must have walked down the path countless times. I could almost smell his fragrance. There is an elegant cottage where Swamiji lived. I wanted to visit the place and meditate, but was told the cottage is open briefly only on Sundays for visitors. Only special guests were allowed in non-scheduled time. I requested they allow me in as I had traveled a long way just to sit down in the cottage and meditate. Of course, my request was not entertained. Because of the uncompromising schedule, I had to give up my wish and had to wait for 1 more year. In 2008, I visited the place again, making sure I arrived there on Sunday and right on their schedule. There was a powerful energy field around the place. The visitors are not allowed to enter his bedroom. One can only get the darshan of the room from the gate outside. I sat down in the porch and meditated. I have visited almost all places associated with Swamiji, including his house in Kolkata, Sri Yukteswar Giri Samadhi in Puri, his ashram at Serampore, his headquarters for the SRF at Beverly Hills, and Lake Shrine, Pacific Palisades, and other ashrams and retreat centers in California. I have felt his strongest presence in his small attic room in Kolkata and in his cottage in the Hermitage Garden at Encinitas. As I sat down for meditation, I had a vivid vision that Swamiji's body from the forest memorial lawn should be brought here and the samadhi be built around him. The vision left me bewildered. I couldn't make head or tail of it. I had already visited the Forest Lawn Memorial Park. I saw that Swamiji's body was stacked among the bodies of non-meditators. In the beginning, I dismissed the vision as a mere projection, but soon this idea started appearing regularly in my meditation. I tried to avoid the vision, but it became increasingly difficult to do so. I tried to meet Dayamata, who was the president of SRF, but I was told that she was in silent retreat and was only accessible to the senior disciples of Swamiji. Every SRF temple has its own beauty. They are not just charged with spiritual energy, but are also equally aesthetic and elegant. However, I realized that the retreat centers have become very rigid and mechanical. For instance, the SRF Hermitage at Encinitas and other centers in America open exactly at 10 a.m. and close at 5 p.m. The California summer afternoons are very hot, humid and uncomfortable. The sun sets late and the weather becomes pleasant after 7 in the evening or in the early morning. If they could structure their schedule to make it more convenient for meditators who want to spend a longer time and soak the energy available there, it will be a welcomed feat. Since I couldn't meet Dayamata, I tried to explain the vision to some of the officials at Encinitas Hermitage and Lake Shrine Retreat. I was mocked and they argued that if Swami Yogananda had desired such, he certainly would have advised some of his senior disciples. To be honest, I do not have any answer to this. It sounds logical that he would have done so, but this idea keeps occurring in my meditation persistently. Many other enlightened masters, including Osho, have confirmed me that the samadhi be built for the benefit of seekers, and that's why I am inspired regularly in this regard. When I told them that his body should either be brought to India or a samadhi should be built in America, one of the officials frowned upon my suggestion and said, "Do you know the cost of transporting the body from America to India? Who will bear the cost?" It wasn't a call I could avoid, so I told him I would bear the cost. When I said that, they remarked, "But he was not born for India. He was born for America. Yukteswar Giri sent him to America." I'm not against building his samadhi in America. In fact, Swamiji has some of the most beautiful ashrams in the United States, and his body should be consecrated in one of those ashrams. In California alone, there are 6 beautiful SRF centers. Even after the death of an enlightened master, seekers can still benefit from the energy emanating from the bodies of the masters. That's why there is a tradition of building samadhis of an enlightened being. There are certain rules and criteria that need to be maintained to preserve the energy and the sanctity of such places. It is ironic that the body of a great yogi like Paramhansa Yogananda has been placed among the corpses of other non-spiritual, non-meditative people. The place where the body of Paramhansa is kept does not have any sanctity maintained. It fills me with sadness to see how his last treasure, his physical body, that embodied the raw soul, is not given the due respect it deserves. There is not even any facility to sit in silence near his body. It is a great loss to humanity that Swami Yogananda's body should be secluded in a mortuary, while millions of seekers could have easily benefited if only his body had been interred in a proper samadhi. Even today the vision haunts me. Swamiji is not in his body anymore. It is up to us to allow ourselves to materialize this auspicious task. It is my humble request to all the devotees of Swami Yogananda and his lovers to think in this direction. And if this idea appeals to you, please extend your hands at materializing this long-cherished dream of mine. This is all about the chapter of Swami Paramhansa Yogananda. I really could contact while reading with the energy of Swami Paramhansa Yogananda, and like Arun mentioned, I have read the autobiography of a yogi several times, at least 2 or 3 times, and it really touched me very deeply, like it must have touched many, many other seekers as well. It's really a very beautiful, beautiful book. Yeah. Wishing you the best, sending you love and light. Namaste. Bye-bye.